welcome back to another episode of Hablando en Serio, Seriously Let's Talk. Thank you again for joining me, and thank you for being patient, as I know it's been a while since I dropped a video. A lot of things have been going on, so yeah, let's just forget the couple months. For those of you who have not visited my channel before, this channel is really just to describe my journey of how I'm coping with anxiety and depression on a daily basis. Anyways, so let's get into everything today. I have a lot of things coming up. So my first thing is that I will be teaming up with Mom's Life. They are a small business in my community that basically does like customized crafts and gifts and things like that. So in my next episode, I'm actually going to be teaming up with them to do a giveaway with them. Basically in celebration for my birthday, because this month is actually my birthday, so shout out to all you Sagittarius or whatever. So yeah, let's get right into today's topic. I really wanted to get into like really tuning into things that started formulating the anxiety in me as a young child, and then basically just how I started to develop my value and my worth and my self-esteem growing up. So yeah, as you guys know, my mom was a immigrant parent. My mom always worked. She was working 3 jobs, and a lot of the time that required her to depend on me. And I remember even as a child, I want to say that I was like 12. That's the earliest, right, that I can remember. She would come home from work and she was always soaking her feet, and I always saw like this like worriedness on her. And not only that, but she would also express that she was struggling, financially. And it kind of like instilled something in me. Like money became like a big issue for me. Like I always was worried. Now I took on that worriedness even at 12 years old. So it kind of like made me hold back from asking for things because I knew that she was struggling with money. So I often preferred not to ask her for stuff because I was afraid that I was asking for too much. Growing up, my mom always made it a point that we needed to advance in life, and the only way that we can advance in life is if we get a better education, like if we educate ourselves. She would often use herself as a point of reference of what we didn't want to be, because unfortunately for her, she had to drop out of school like right at middle school age, and she had to go and earn a living for her family. So my mom learned how to hustle at a very young age. And she started learning, like, even in Mexico, like, the faster you do things, the faster that you're able to provide a product to somebody, the more that they were willing to come back to you. I started to realize that my mom's value of herself started to come from her work. So if she wasn't working, she didn't feel like her life had any value. She always had to be working. And she was always overwhelmed, always overworked, and she was obsessed with getting things done perfectly. And that is instilled from the system that is built to oppress us minorities and is basically set up to make us fail. What I mean by this is that these big companies were brainwashing her to believe that, listen, if you do your job well, you can advance this way. But unfortunately for my mom, there was times that there would be promotions that passed her because she didn't know the language and she didn't know how to use computer systems. Because she didn't have an education, she wasn't able to advance technology, right? That encouraged her to be harder on her kids. And it was all for the same goal and for the same dream that she had for all of us, which is for everyone to have their American dream, to have their house, to have their career, to be able to advance in life and to do better for the next generation to come. So there was no resting ever. And I think that some of that no resting came from basically her trying to suppress her own trauma, basically not talk about her trauma, because unfortunately for my mom, she did suffer some traumas in Mexico that I prefer not to speak about because it makes me really upset, because who the fuck would even hurt my mom? So basically what I gathered from just her overworking all the time is that productivity was my worth. what I was doing to provide for my family, or what I was doing to advance my family, meant a lot to me, and I internalized that as a personal issue. I would obsess with getting things right because my mom would obsess with getting things right. You know, she would come home, and like I said, she depended on me a lot, and she made it a point that I needed to make sure that the homeworks were done for me and my younger sister, there was food on the table, and that the house was clean. And I was 12. Again, I didn't know anything. I would come home from school, and we would catch ourselves, like my mom was on her way out and I was on the way in from school, and she would tell me, like, you know, aquí está un poco de carne, this is how you cook it, like a real quick small synopsis. And I'm 12, like I have no knowledge of really cooking anything. And I remember this one time in particular that I almost started to cry already because it's triggering or whatever. But yeah, she told me that I needed to cook some chicken or something like that, and she was like, just fry it up. Again, no knowledge. I put up the heat like to a really high temperature, and I put the chicken, and it overcooked, but the inside wasn't cooked. And during this time, my mom would come. She was working her night shift, and she expected me to have dinner ready during her lunch break. So her lunch break was around 6 or 7, which was dinner time at my house for me and my younger sister. And she would just she came in, and she ripped into the chicken, and a whole mess of blood came out, and she was like, I can't fucking believe you. It was just like, it was like this big dramatic thing. And for me, I overly obsessed that situation because I felt like I did something wrong. And instead of her realizing that I am a visual learner and that I need like step-by-step directions and stuff like that, she would freak out. And I want to say that some of that came from her upbringing too, of how her parents treated her and how they raised her. So, you know, and also it was super intense. You know, she depended on me, and I don't blame my mom for any of this stuff, but it's just, it was a very hard time for me when I was growing up. Because again, I would work on getting things right. So when I didn't get things right, I would obsess and I would beat myself up. You know, like, man, I can't believe I didn't do this right. I would beat myself up because, again, like, I just wanted to show my mom that her efforts were not going unrecognized at home, at least. If I could have prevented my mom from experiencing stuff, then I was going to try and make it as easy as possible for her, since she was missing out opportunities.
That was cute.
Another particular time in my life that added to anxiety and everything was when we went to a doctor, and this doctor, who was also an immigrant, he was an Indian, right? He decided to tell my mom and ask her, like, how long have you been in the United States? And then my mom answers, and then he's like, oh, well, why are you using your daughter to translate things when you've been here for that many years? And to me, like, I took that shit personal, because, like, who the fuck is this doctor to even be sitting here talking and making judgments of my mom when he has no knowledge of her life and no concept of what she's gone through, right? So me being the person who I was at that age, I think I was like 15, like at 15 I thought it was pretty gangster or whatever, like you couldn't fuck with me or whatever. Like, I'm not even gonna go into who I was when I was 15, but I really thought I was a badass or whatever. I literally was about to square up with this doctor, and like, I started talking to him like, who the fuck are you to talk to my mom like this? Like, you know, meanwhile, like, he's sitting on this fucking throne of like privilege, because number one, he comes from a family that was able to afford him an education, right? He comes from a family that was able to provide him with the financial needs to go to school, and also with the support. Like, my mom is trying to do that for me now, so why are you throwing another fellow immigrant under the bus because they're not living up to your expectations? Like, anyways, fuck that doctor. We never went back to him again. So even when I would come home, like, I would have these fake arguments when I was in the bathroom. Like, I would be taking showers and I'm like, I could have said this, I could have said that. And I still do that to this day, just so you guys know. Like, if a Karen ever comes across me, like, I'm gonna tear that bitch up. But anyways, I'm not I'm not even gonna get in there. So yeah, so now fast forward when I was 21 and basically when I was going through my mental breakdown, right? The straw that kind of like threw everything off for me was failing a math class. For me, failing a math class meant a lot for me because I set myself up for high expectations because, again, I was the first child to go to college, and I had a lot of expectations to live up to, not only for myself, not only for my mom, but for my family as well. So I had a lot to deal with. I had college to deal with, and then not only that, but then deal with the pressures that I come from, like from my mom, the pressures from my mom to get it done right, the pressures to, break the generational barrier of going to college, so that way the generations after me can do it and realize that this is a normal standard for us, that we as well can do it. Basically realizing that college is something that we can also attain, and not the rich white kids that we went to school with. Like, that's the normal for them. Like, I had a lot of pressures on me. And once I dropped out of college, it kind of like triggered the anxiety and the depression because I started to beat myself up again. Like, oh my God, like, my mom's efforts are going to not be noticed. Basically, my mom is going to be super upset with me because she has worked so hard for me to be where I'm at in my life, and here I am wasting the opportunity. So it basically provoked a lot for me. Hence why I had the breakdown or whatever. And when I mean breakdown, like, I don't want you guys to be like, oh my God, like I had to go to the hospital. No, like it meant like basically that I was just depressed all the time and I was anxious. And thankfully for me, like my outlet was that I went to go seek therapy and seek help. While I was in college, I did take a couple psychology classes, which actually encouraged me to go into social work, because I started to realize like the things that I was feeling and the things that I was going through was not just something that I was going through, but it's also like was a normal thing that a lot of people were going through. And for me, it took a lot of effort to go and seek help because I had to journal my shit. I've had to like go through therapy, and I've had to like come to realization that I have to forgive my mom for how she raised me. I will never say like my mom is the cause of my shit. I will say that my mom didn't know any better because, again, there was a lot of factors to it. Like I said, to tie it all together, she was an immigrant. She had minimal education, and she did the best she could with the resources that she had and with the skills that she had. And honestly, if I even amount to 75% of what my mom is, then that would be my greatest accomplishment, because my mom to me is the biggest... What the fuck? Okay. The biggest flex that I have in my life, because she was able to establish herself as an independent woman, as a boss, and as a role model for me, right? Even though she had all these factors against her and all these external things coming at her, she never gave up, and she was able to achieve her American dream. So I don't blame her for anything. I actually am super grateful for her and for her experience and for her wisdom, because if I needed her tomorrow, she would drop everything now, because she's recognized where things could have gone better, right? And with therapy, it has actually also helped in my relationship with my mom, because I'm able to speak to her and I'm able to cross those barriers of when she was comparing stuff, and I was able to like let her speak about it, because obviously she hasn't been able to speak about her own traumas that she's dealt with. So I let her vent, and then also just like kind of like bring it back. So therapy has worked very well for building my mom and I's relationship to a better place where it is now. So I'll end with this. My mom worked too hard for me not to be great. And what I mean by that is, although these pressures caused some of the anxiety and caused, yeah, I want to say only the anxiety because the depression part comes from my dad or whatever. But although it caused some of the anxiety that I was dealing with, it really just motivated me more to do better because, yeah, I will always do everything in my life just to make sure that my mom is okay, she's set up well, and that I make her proud.
Thanks for watching Hablando en Serio, seriously, let's talk. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications for new content.